The University of Louisville Spring Game just wrapped up this past Friday. We're going to talk about that from someone who was on the field. Roll the film. Welcome on in, welcome on in, welcome on into the Cardinal Companion. As always, I'm your main man, Josh, with my great co-host, James. James, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good. A lot to talk about, a lot of sticking points, a lot to be excited about for the fall and the future for the Cards.
No, I agree. I was a huge fan of the article that you put out the day after the spring game on Saturday, which again, I feel like I say this every show. If you're not following the Cardinal Companion on Twitter, it's not on all these great free articles and whatnot. It'll be listed right here. So go ahead and check it out if you get the opportunity. But that was kind of a big talking point of your article was, just youth kind of showing up, which is to be expected at a spring game, inherently.
So let's get right into it. First of all, I would like to highlight that some of your bigger names that returned in your Isaac Brown only got a few snaps, less than 10 total for the night with no carries. Ewan Brown, he was held out due to an injured ankle at practice. He's okay. It was just to keep him safe. Trey Richardson, he is in pads, but he did not play, obviously, as he rehabs his ankle. McCoy was on a snap count. So obviously you're not going to see those names that you're going to be more and more prevalent this fall. You're in your two deep. Most of those, all four of those guys are going to get significant time on the field. So you knew with that you were going to see a lot of faces that are going to have an opportunity to prove themselves at an early point of the process to the fan base.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it in our preview show a little bit. What roles we wanted to see Isaac Brown and Lincoln Kindholtz in specifically. And, we kind of nailed that right on the money about those roles. You didn't see a lot from Lincoln. He did play, was it 2 or 3 drives?
He did two drives from starting from his 20, and he did one red zone drive.
Yeah. And, from what we saw from Lincoln, it wasn't anything spectacular, in my opinion. And, a lot of that is by design. I don't think that just the play calling, it might have purposely been very vanilla. You never know. Someone said that a couple of days ago on this program. And, that's kind of to be expected. I know some people are a little disappointed about that, but you don't want to go out there and put it all on the line for essentially a practice. And a lot of those same things could be said about Isaac Brown. Just the only difference is Isaac Brown is a proven commodity here at Louisville. Lincoln Kindholtz isn't.
So I want to dive a little bit into this. I've been to multiple open practices, and I've seen a lot of footage on Lincoln. The benefit to not showing everything outweighed the benefit of showing him off to the fans. Because like we touched on in the preview, Mess definitely had at least one person there on Friday night. There's a giant
Oh,
gray
100%. I mean,
area.
you'd be
No one
silly
knows
not
what
to.
Lincoln with Jeff looks like. So obviously Jeff is a man of the people. He knows what the city wants. He knew we wanted to see Lincoln, so he gave us Lincoln. But the kind of metaphor I like to use is like if Diet Light beer was a thing. That's what you got the version of Lincoln, huh?
Michelob Ultras.
It was the Michelob Ultra of Lincoln. You were seeing bubble screens and 5-yard outs. That was all you were getting. You got one pass deep down the field that I don't think was meant to go down the field. Lincoln just said, "I'm throwing it."
Yeah.
The highlight of it though is,
You know,
and I think Louisville fans, the ones that were there, can see that is Lincoln and Jackson Vol have a lot of chemistry very fast.
Yeah, and that was kind of a concern coming into this season where, you had your very proven, I would argue, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 in Richardson and McCoy. But who would be that third guy? And I really do think it's kind of showing that Voth will be that third guy. And I don't know if that's, surprising to some people, but there's chemistry there, like you noted.
I want to shout out a friend of the channel who made the comment on Friday night that Jackson's that Mr. Always Open. He's that classic like '07 Wes Welker type receiver that we haven't had here in a long time. He's that safety valve slot receiver that has has a little size that if you can just keep your eyes down the field, Jackson's going to get open. He's one of those receivers that
Uh,
does not quit on the play.
yeah, that's what you need. That has all the tools there to be a great wide receiver. But let me stop you real quick, James. We're talking about great wide receivers and the potential. Do you know what makes you a great YouTube video watcher?
Like and subscribe.
If you like and subscribe our channel here at the Cardinal Companion, it takes you 2 seconds. It is free content from us to you. Free either way you put at it. You're not spending $10 a month on some hokey Discord. No more message boards. No more scrolling through 500 Twitter accounts. Give us a subscription if you think about it. And if you feel so kind, please turn on notifications. We would greatly appreciate it. Along with Voth, though, how did you feel about the rest of the wideout room from what you saw?
So obviously you have the two that's out for a year, and Quisenberry and Hughes. Hurry was quiet. Hurry was weirdly, he didn't have as many reps as you'd expect him to have. He had 1 or 2 catches all night. The kind of guy that we pointed out Brad did last week on a preview. Evan Waddle had a really nice
Yes, he
showing.
did.
Lane McCoy is really good. Even when he doesn't get the ball, he's doing so much with his length and speed to cause some issues for the secondary. Um, the shock of the spring game, and I don't say shock because I was all over him last year when we got him from Minnesota, so I knew he had a lot of potential. Because last year, if people watched back in the videos, continuation here, if you subscribe, me and Josh both said TJ McWilliams could be your next Chris Bell because he was coming in as a freshman, and he had a similar size to what Chris did as a freshman. And he was the same kind of receiver in the way he ran routes. TJ looked quick. TJ looked
Yes.
like he was able to get in and out of his routes a lot better. Obviously, with getting Richardson back and McCoy and Voth, he's going to have to earn playing time. But McWilliams knows that from last year, and I feel like he's ready to take that next step, and he's a good piece to have on this offense.
No, I agree. And again, continuation. He was a highly ranked high school kid, never really saw the field of Minnesota. We take those type of chances, and typically those kids tend to work out for us. I was really excited to see the, performance that he had and just kind of the showing out. Because I do think if it's not Voth, it could be a guy like a McWilliams or Hurry or just someone we're not thinking of. But we've put a lot of pressure on the wide receiver room to produce that wide receiver 3. I feel like we do this every single year. But there's a legitimate argument to be made in modern college football that you don't need a wide receiver 3. um, you can have a wide receiver 3 by committee, and it works out just fine. If one guy gets 900 yards or 3 guys get 300 yards, it's the same end result, no matter any way you look at it.
Josh, I want to talk about the hot topic that I was kind of tweeting throughout the spring game if you were watching. You got Paul Petrino who comes in and takes over the tight end room, and you could tell there was an emphasis on getting the tight ends going early, even with Brody not really playing. You had Justin Reed and Skinner, the way they were utilizing both of those. You had Travis Egan starting at fullback during this. Justin Reed, he's probably going to be starting fullback, but they had him moved up in the tight end room for this spring game. His ability to block and release. He having a guy
Uh-huh.
like that we didn't have last year. We just didn't. I feel like the Louisville fans will be able to tell that Paul Petrino's here because that tight end room you can just tell. Like they know that they're going to be the second read off one of the receivers. It's not going to be a touchdown. Reed was catching the ball 10 to 15 yards down the field while Skinner was motioning out to beside McCoy on some plays. You're going to see some new wrinkles
Uh-huh.
in that tight end room.
And that's what's made me so excited. I mean, obviously me, South Alabama guy, take this out of the equation and all the pictures in the background. South Alabama guy, right? Mobile man. Um, love the Paul Petrino hire, and a large part of that is he can coach tight ends. He can coach wide receivers, he can do all that. But what is he going to add to the offense as a whole? And I think, like what you just highlighted, we're seeing that where he does have a role somewhere in there with, Jeff and Brian of this is how we want to run it. This is what I've seen that's been very successful. And a guy like Paul Petrino, inherently, you have to believe that he's going to have, that lived in experience. I mean, you look at Paul Petrino's track record here. He's coached with guys obviously like his brother Bobby, Jim McElwain, Major Applewhite. Like those are some big time offensive minds. And arguably, I would say that the tight end room has been what's lacking in a Jeff Brom offense. So to kind of see this all come full circle, I think is just a net positive for everyone involved. And I'm really, really hoping that Paul Petrino is able to take on more of a game day operations, maybe some time management because we've had some issues in the past, things like that, role during the season.
So we've touched on the receivers. We've touched on the wide receivers, tight ends. I want to highlight some of our offensive line before we kind of get into the actual spring game.
Okay.
First off, fully congrats to Cameron Gorin. He got the start with the ones. And he played a good chunk of it with the ones. You kind of saw freshman Strickland got some run toward the end. The kind of takeaway I have from the offensive line is if we can get healthy, Henry didn't play obviously as he recovers just kind of from an injury that he had pre-existing before he came here. If we can get healthy and stay healthy, we have a legitimate 2 to 3 deep at every position on that offensive line. You're looking at about height average of anywhere from 6'3" to 6'6", with a weight of 280 to 310. You have some good SEC type size on that offensive line. And the good
That's an
you had
SEC line of scrimmage right there, boy.
And you have our real, and as we're going to highlight here in a few minutes on the defensive side of the ball, they have a SEC type defensive line that they go against every day in practice. So there's not much that they're going to see in games that they don't get every day at practice.
Well, my question for you is the entire time that Jeff Brom has been here, the offensive line has had a very specific style that they play. A lot of lateral movement on the line of scrimmage, a lot of pulling. They've always had to have sneaky, agile guards, really. Has that changed with the coaching change at the offensive line?
Somewhat, but not really. Um, don't get me wrong, you can only know so much from interpersonal practices and your spring game. But from what I see, I'm very high on Eric Doherty. I was really high on him at Boston College last year. I think we have a good group. I think Eric Doherty has a chance to be one of the top offensive linemen in the ACC this year. You were saying in the spring game multiple times that the defense would completely just, obviously in the spring game a lot of things are scripted. It's meant for defense to win some reps, and Eric Doherty would just make a hole, and then you love to see that out of your guard.
And then before we switch on over to
sorry for answering your
yeah.
question but not answering. But at the same time, it's pretty much the
Oh, you're
same
good.
kind of movement. But if anything, I think you saw them get more vertical quicker now.
No, you're okay. You just gave me the Jeff Brom answer. That's all. Wrapping up the offense though, because I know it is going to be a topic of conversation come Monday when local sports talk radio starts doing their thing. Talking about the quarterbacks a little more in depth. We kind of hit a little bit on Lincoln, but I think it's there's two other guys to talk about in that room, and Widener and Cherry. I'm gonna come out right now and say it. I've seen a few weird little takes online. There's not a quarterback competition.
No.
Like there is no quarterback competition right now.
No. The spring game went as the coaches wanted it to go. In the way I kind of explained it to some people that have asked me is, if you want to know what the Louisville offense is going to be, watch clips of the spring game where Widener was out. Because they weren't hiding Widener. They wanted you to know Widener was a guy. Widener is a guy. Former 4-star recruit that went to Ole Miss. We know Davin could throw the ball. We knew what we got when we got him. That's why we went and got him. Obviously, we kind of put out, like we said, like a diet version of Lincoln. You got bubble screens and quick passes. You weren't getting anything more. You saw a couple plays where he showed he can run the ball. His first snap of the spring game was a 30-yard run. Like, you got enough to a taste of what everybody gets confused because he didn't have the big 2 deep balls that Widener had that everybody's talking about. But Lincoln was 10 for 16 whenever they were scripting bubble screens and him getting blitzed by 7 to 9 people. And people also forget that 3 of those incompletions were throwing the ball out of bounds to avoid getting sacked. So
and
I
let's
was
just be
wanted to
very
touch on that.
honest. Yeah, let's be very honest also, and I don't mean this as disrespectfully at all. Lincoln really wasn't throwing to the cream of the crop wide receivers.
No. So they gave Lincoln Jackson. They did. But outside of that, they were kind of rotating kind of the 3 deep and 4 deep at wide receiver for Lincoln. With Widener, he had Waddle and McCoy, and he also had Reed. So Widener also had kind of the higher ups in the depth chart. But don't get me wrong, like I said, Widener is a dude. Like, full credit to him. That's why we went and got him. We know if something happens and
Mhm.
Lincoln can't
No,
play,
absolutely.
we're fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
But there's a reason why you see these clips from Davin and not Lincoln. It's not that Lincoln didn't play. Because if you've been to the open practices, which they've been open to everybody, you can see Lincoln can make those throws. They just weren't scheming those up for a reason.
Agree. And then, the final guy in the room, we got to talk about Briggs Cherry. This is a lot of people's. This was the Briggs Cherry coming out party. First time in a U of L uniform, playing in any sort of like a live game situation. And it went as well as you could expect it to go. Pretty much all the hype that it kind of built up over that high school recruitment just kind of came to fruition. And that kid is the future of your program. So you hold on to that kid any means necessary.
So, that I've been kind of back and forth. I'm really hesitant about saying the future. I have been. We all did. There's a lot of people did it with Pierce. I love Deuce. A lot of people did it with Deuce.
That was me.
But I was always
That
that
was me.
person. I love Deuce. I've never been more certain the of a player that's going to be kind of etched in the history of this program than I have Briggs. I don't think people realize it is the buy-in around him. It's not just Briggs. His whole family's bought in. And outside of this first throw, which obviously it's your first throw in college in front of 8 to 10,000 people that were there in attendance. First ball, he was a little shaky, but I posted some clips on Twitter over the course of the night. Um, he he's he's probably the most accurate true freshman quarterback we've had. Like, coming into college this early, he's making throws that you're seeing some seniors around the country not be able to make.
Oh man, I'm in complete agreement with you. I think it is very clear the direction of the program. And you know me, I was a big Deuce Adams guy. I was a Mason Mims guy. RIP. It feels a lot different, both around the program and just watching as a fan. It feels a lot different than with those two guys. So I can't wait. Swapping on over to the defense though. And by the way, I know we glazed over the running back room. There's really not a lot to say.
They didn't really
Sorry,
run the
the
ball
running
much.
back room just Tompkins. Yeah, Lakey looked good, but outside of that, like majority of your top end running backs were not playing, so or very limited snap count. So no disrespect, but then going over to the defense, man, you got a freaking unit. You got a
So,
unit back there, man. Uh,
same thing with offense. I want to touch on the guys that didn't play. So Antonio Watts is still kind of getting back from injury from the surgery he had at the end of last season. You had limited reps from guys like Stanquan Clark, he's back, but he's still, you don't want to risk anything because of the kind of extent of his ankle from last year. TJ Capers played a lot. Trent Carter played a lot. And everybody knows from Twitter, Clev Lubin played. He played like it was an actual game. Uh,
yes,
but
I had reel back the
one,
horses a little bit on him there a few times.
yeah. So this brings me to the first thing I want to talk about. Let's talk about this defensive line. So the issue last year at times,
I mean, you can make the argument that it's a top 10 defensive line coming into the season.
yeah, I think I said that to you at one point last Friday night.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Sometimes
mean
last
just to
year,
just to
let's be
set the
honest with
stage
you.
here.
Yeah. So last season, we started here. We were showing a lot of different schemes, a lot of different types of unique pressures, like exotic blitzes. As the year went on, you saw less of that. That's just true, and it comes with getting banged up. And we weren't the deepest at the position last year. Let's just call a spade a spade. We lacked depth at the defense on a defensive line, and showed in play calling because you couldn't use Clev like we use Ashton because we didn't have backups or backups that were ready to play in those big time games. This year, I think you saw an emphasis in the portal, which you and Eric both touched on in the transfer portal video. Go check it out down below. You saw an emphasis and it showed. You got guys like Kennedy. You got Tyler Thompson. You got Dalen Russell. You got Tommy Zosmer. He didn't play last night. He got hurt in spring camp, but he'll be back. AJ Green's back at the transfer portal win. He had entered the portal. And you got both of the Smith twins. I don't know how I could ever forget those two former 4-stars. The talent you have at defensive line room is insane. The speed and agility throughout, and the fact that you compare Tyler 6'5" to you have Tyler Thompson who's 6'5", 240 on the other side, and you can kind of rotate in AJ Green and one of the Smith twins on the outside, and you still have a certain guy that's now a redshirt freshman by the name of Eric Hazard who do not sleep on Eric. I believe Eric will get some time this year. Like just the stuff they can do with this defensive line. Like you honestly felt bad at times for Lincoln whenever he was playing the ones on the defensive line because they were giving that vanilla play calling like the bubble screen and quick passes. And and that's another thing we'll touch on. The secondary wasn't making it easy to make those quick passes. So at times Lincoln would hold it longer and he'd be getting chased by Clev, AJ, and Tyler because Tyler was lining up on like the far side with AJ Green and Clev looping, and that's nasty work. You get all three of those rushing the quarterback at one time. There's not many offensive lines in the country that can stop that.
I mean, outside of Ole Miss, I don't know another one on your schedule. I mean, I like I said, before we started this conversation, I said, hey, this is be a top 10 unit in the country. That's not me blowing smoke, brother. You hit on all the guys individually, but the one that just stands out to me, and we talked a lot about him during the transfer portal, Tyler Thompson is a dude. And I think what Louisville is going to be doing this year on the defensive line is I use the term SEC ball a lot. I'm sorry. From the Southeast, I get it. It makes people annoyed. Get over it. I know it's a Louisville page. SEC football from 2008 to like 2020 was, hey, I got Igor and I got Frankenstein as my DNs. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much heart, will, grit, how much you want to pray, whatnot. That's not blocking them. You got to have dudes to block those guys. It doesn't. When you got freak athletes, you gotta have freak athletes on the offensive line to block them. I don't see that in a lot of the ACC. Miami, yes, Miami, one of the better offensive line units in the country every single year. They're not on a regular schedule. You could have a uber productive defensive line this year, and I think he will. There's too many guys there. Like you just listen them all off. There's too many guys.
And another thing,
But
Bailey
oh yeah,
Abercrombie.
oh yeah.
I want to touch on him. Bailey has taken a big jump. He's gained a lot of muscle over the course of his freshman season. Don't be shocked to see him get some time. Another factor is you mentioned Ole Miss. Ole Miss lost 4 of their 5 starting linemen from last year, and they didn't really hit on any major offensive linemen. And
We call that
also a
a clue in the business.
And also a tidbit is they lost their wide receiver 1, their wide receiver 2 and 3 both went to the draft. That Ole Miss team's going to be outside of Trinidad and Lacey. There's a lot of questions on that side.
We got a little while to have those conversations, but that's what we call a clue. Take note of that for the future. Jumping on back a little bit though, about 5 yards deeper into the linebacker room. What was kind of your initial takeaways there? And again, I know it is difficult because of the amount of guys that were out in the linebacker room.
Capers have gotten a lot bigger. He continues to he's hitting that weight room. And the scary part is he's hitting the weight room, but he's not.
Last week.
He's hitting the weight room, but he's not getting any slower. Well, that's the scary part I think people need to realize. I'm going to touch on everybody that kind of played, but TJ Capers, just imagine the defensive line that we just touched on with Antonio Watts, Danquan Clark, TJ Capers behind. It's scary. And you got guys like Trent Carter, who's been waiting. Trent Carter played great Friday night. He's a young kid out of Florida. He's no slouch himself. He's been waiting. He's been learning. He's. I was really impressed at his makeup speed on pass coverage. Obviously, it's spring game. Sometimes you're meant to let the guy catch the ball, but it seemed like every time the ball was thrown near Trent, he was there. Touching everybody. Taj, freshman linebacker, he got some time late. I'm impressed with his speed. I think he may be a future star backer for this team. I think he reminds me a lot of a young Antonio Watts, just in his size and build and kind of the way he sees the field. Ben Perry's back. He got some time. Ben Perry, we all know Ben
I was
Perry.
gonna ask. I, w- I was gonna ask. Did Ben Perry play the majority of the star backer snaps?
For the most part, yeah. He kind of rotated him and Taj, but for the most part,
Okay.
Ben played.
Did they drop? Did they drop
Ben
Ben
just
Perry at all into the safety room?
no. And the thing
Good.
about it is with the safety room is they're like 2 to 3 deep in there anymore. There's no really need for him to drop back. Um, but Ben, you know what Ben is. We've had him before. He's smart and he knows the defense. So he kind of just flowed back into old times. You had Matt. I always mispronounce his name. You have to edit this. Do you know how to say Mantelaw's last name the right way?
No, no, I don't. Don't ask me. We're
What's his
leaving that in the
first name?
video. I don't know. I'm waiting on my media
That's
guide,
not.
like the pronunciations. I don't know. I don't know how to say it. Honest to God.
I want to talk about him, but I don't know his first name.
I mean that as respectfully as possible. Give him a nickname. That's what I do. Like with Lincoln Logs. You think I knew how to say Kindholtz right off the rip? No, I was like, oh yeah, Lincoln Logs.
I'm just gonna call him Manty.
Manty. All right, I
So you
like
had
that.
Manny.
Manty. What up, Manty?
You had Man. You had Manty, who kind of got some time. He's kind of been a guy similar to Trent, who's kind of been just waiting their turn. He's a young guy. I was really impressed with his makeups. His ability to just crash in the running game. You didn't really see him play that role of in pass coverage, but he reminded me a lot. He played that role like Caleb Perry did last year after Stanquan went down. That was kind of like play the edge behind the edge rusher just to kind of fill that hole. And I feel like Manti was able to do that really well. Um, Trying to make sure I touch on everybody. I think that was all that played because Antonio was out. Stanquan played very little. And most of his reps were kind of the running plays where the defensive line was kind of what was on show. But Stanquan, obviously, you don't have to talk on Stanquan. We know what Stanquan is. Stanquan's one of the best linebackers in the country. Same thing with
Yeah.
TJ. But TJ, I can't be more happier to be right about somebody than what I am about TJ because I was one of those guys when we got TJ Capers when he was coming in. That I was like, okay, this is it. Um, Obviously, it took a little bit longer to get here, but TJ looks everything that we thought he was going to be when he came as a freshman. Um,
Mm-hmm.
do you want to touch on anything before we move on to the secondary?
Brother, I think you hit it all and more. So I'm not gonna step on you. That phenomenal. Let's talk a little bit about the secondary, though. 'Cause, you know, I'm a big secondary boy. What are your initial thoughts on the secondary? I know they play fast, they play physical, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I personally thought it looked a little different than what we saw from Ron English, which was surprising to me, because you know Steve Ellis kind of staying in that role of not being elevated. I would expect to see a lot of the same things, you know, a lot of the same cover shells, a lot of same alignment and whatnot, and it didn't look the same. If anything, I thought that specifically the cornerbacks played up a little bit closer. There's a few different coverage shells, in my opinion. Really liked them, and a lot of different. I would say like one different base coverage, which I really liked. Not a traditional like too high, kind of like a two offset, which I was a big fan of.
It was, yeah. So it, you kind of hit it nail on the head. You can do that things. I think it's a little bit of. I think they want to kind of stay as similar as possible, just because some of the returning guys, it's kind of the same base defense. It's just let's just be honest. There's more talent in that room than we've had in years past. We were loaded in
That's a nice way to
2023.
put. That's a nice way to put it. That's a nice way of putting it. Yeah.
We were loaded in 23, but let's be honest, outside of the top 4, we weren't this deep with talent as we are this year. So the kind of looks that we're able to do this year with the speed and length we have at corner, pair that with the experience and football IQ in the safety position, Cohen in the back, he's already calling plays from the safety position in the back of the defense, moving linebackers around. I don't think people realize how big it is to have a guy like Cohen back there who understands football enough that he's been here 2.5 months and he's already telling people where to go.
Yeah, I mean he's a natural born leader. You know, that's kind of why you bring a guy like that in. Um, any initial thoughts on the cornerbacks though? Anyone in particular you want to highlight?
I want to touch on this. Obviously, there was a couple deep balls that Davin had thrown. Those were kind of scripted. Those were obviously scripted. You had a streak route against a Tampa 2. You don't. That was the offense knew what the defense was calling. That was meant to have that deep ball for the spring game. You had that in every spring game. So I want to touch on. Then, by the way, those were the only 2 passes that anybody got wide open 10 yards down the field, and it was obvious it was on purpose. I want to touch on highlight Bryson Scott from Elon. He was kind of the star of the show on Friday night. We knew he was good. He was kind of he rated like a high 3-star in the transfer portal. We got him late. His speed reminds me a lot of Rodney Johnson from last year. But the one thing that got me was it wasn't just raw speed, it was his ability to make up in his movement with not just his feet, but his hands. He made life as hard as it can be. And it kind of goes back to the quarterbacks. If it wasn't for Briggs looking lights out, Lincoln doing what he had to do the right, and Davin just playing out of his mind, Bryson probably made it the toughest on the quarterbacks all night. That's not to say that the other corners didn't. I was really happy with what I saw out of Santana. His ability to just stay in his really blanket his side of the field for a majority of the spring game was impressive to me, just because of his lack of actual on-field time at Texas last year. You had Tayon. We all know we had Holloway. You know how Holloway can play. He showed us that last year. He's kind of just did his job, and you pair him doing his job with the rest of the guys on the field, it's going to make a lot of defenses make a lot of mistakes. You have Caleb Beasley. Caleb Beasley. I don't think you realize how fast this dude is. Um, Him and Cohen in the back is going to be scary because both of them run probably a sub 4.4 40-yard dash. His hand skills have improved. He's a former cornerback in high school. His football IQ, as he was a dual athlete, as he ran wide receiver as well, so he can read the mind a lot. And you saw him really almost meet the ball at the receiver a lot on Friday night. Banks didn't play much. I think he was kind of just kind of on his snap count trying to rest. But what you did see was a high football IQ. He was kind of moving people around. And that's kind of the overwhelming takeaway from the secondary is they brought in guys with experience and high football IQ, and they're all leading. It's not of I'm the guy, which is easy especially for a guy like Cohen, who's been all first team All Big Ten like 3 years out of his 4 years while he was at Iowa. It's easy for him to come in and say, I'm one of the best safeties in the country. Everybody needs to listen to me. They're not like that. It's a unit. It's a team. Clev Lubin loves to say it's like a giant family. You can tell it is. Their communication, even on plays where it's chaos. Nobody knows what's going on. Quarterback's running around 15 yards in the backfield. They're still talking. And that's the one thing we couldn't say back in 24. There's times the defense looked confused and offenses preyed on that. I don't think you'll get that out of this team. I think 2 to 3 deep. I think the relationships and the communication, for it just being 2.5 months of practice and it just being April, you add on a fall camp. I think there's a lot to be excited about the football, defensive side of the football.
No, I completely agree. I mean, you're essentially returning all the core parts of a previously top 25 defense. You've added on a lot of great additions like Cohen, like Thompson, just to name a few. High expectations, to say the least. Very high expectations for this unit. And then the final little phase of the game to talk about that is going to be a fun conversation. What's going on with special teams, buddy? You going to open tryouts next week for a kicker?
So this is obviously you're gonna say there's
not good.
beating around this. I will say I don't think punting's an issue. I think Jacob Baker would be fine. The way to kind of was scripted. People also won't say that there was like a 20-mile-per-hour wind pushing into the face of Jacob. and he was still getting balls over 40 yards down the field. That's a lot harder than people realize. So like, I'm not concerned about the punting game. We saw Jacob firsthand when he was at Eastern last year. We know how far he can kick that ball.
I'm not worried about punting either, but there's another major facet of the game I'm a little worried about, and it's not punting or the long
So
snappers.
let's touch on this.
It ain't good.
So Carson Hilbert did a brunt of the kicking on Friday night. Nick Keller didn't kick much at all. That's another thing I think people aren't really reading. They're reading these tweets and about generalizations about things. Nick Keller's probably your starting kicker. He hit multiple 50-yarders. He got a pulled groin toward the end of last year, so he's kind of kicking, but he's not kicking much, just trying to heal. Carson Carson had a rough night, but kickers have bad nights. It's the truth, and there was kind of some wind to that side of the field. He had a couple doinks on some PATs. Obviously, it's the spring. There's time to fix it. We don't expect him to be like Cooper or Ranvier this quick. There's time to fix it. It's just acknowledging that there is a problem right now. Just to get a little bit more consistency, get Nick Keller as healthy as we can get him, and if not, make sure that Carson's ready and Carson's comfortable and has confidence in himself. We know Carson can hit it in practice. Carson's one of the more consistent kickers we've had in the past 10 years. It's just a bad night. I wouldn't read too much into it. I think it'll get fixed. It'll be rectified. Like I said, I don't consider that as big of an issue as most people do, just because you saw last year, not to get off topic, but SMU's kicker was up for the finalists for kicker of the year, and he missed 3 field goals in one quarter, in the fourth quarter. So kickers have bad days. Carson's a dude. We know he's a dude. It's just a matter of getting everybody healthy, get everybody their confidence, and making sure everybody knows we need to win all 3 sides of the ball. So special teams has to show up, and I think Jeff will take care of that.
Well, James, the last kind of bit of conversation I wanted to hit on while we're here. What's one thing that you were hoping to understand about the team from the spring game that you still don't quite understand and could be seen as an unknown going into week 1 against Ole Miss?
It's easy to say Lincoln, just because you know that there's a lot to Lincoln that a lot of people outside haven't seen, which I'm not going to touch on, just because there's reasons the coaches have chosen not to say that. So obviously, let's just say this: I'm very there's a lot of unknown about how these receivers will work, just because we know Jackson's going to be a target that's going to get significant run this season. He's going to get more runs than we expected when we first got him on, just because of the kind of role he's made for himself with the chemistry he has with Lincoln. So it's interesting to see how you're going to work Trey in once Trey gets going here in a couple weeks, as he works toward getting fully cleared alongside Lawayne, and you bring in another portal guy for D2 in a day after the spring game. So the wide receiver room and how you're able to kind of mix and match and be able to kind of adjust. You have a lot of speed and a lot of length. I think that's the gray area, just because you only saw really the 4s, 3s, and you saw Lawayne, but a limited capacity. And you saw Jackson, but they utilized Jackson a lot smaller role than I think you'll see him this fall.
Sounds good. I love hearing it. Well, any other final parting thoughts you want to throw out there to kind of put a bow on the spring game for us?
So we touched on don't get too high off the spring game. It also goes along with don't get too sour. Don't overreact to the fact you saw a vanilla version of Lincoln. That's not who Lincoln is. I can tell you that. I'm not going to elaborate any further on that. Don't get too sour about the rushing game not really being kind of showed off. That was by design. There's no reason to show off the rushing game. You know the running backs you have. Just know you have a really good football team that is going to be pushing toward a playoff chase. They play 5 out of the bottom 7 teams in the ACC. We're going to highlight this later on in the summer. That's a little teaser for you for the preview. But it's a very favorable schedule. You got 6 home games. Lighting packages should be done by end of July, by the way. So some light shows coming to home games. So a lot to be excited about. We got a really good roster, and we got the right dudes in there, not just on the field but on the sidelines. You got over 100 years of coaching experience between Paul, Jeff, Brian at this point, um, Ellis and Ivy.
Brian's getting old.
Yeah, you have a ton of experience. And they all know the city. They know what this city needs, and they all want the playoff just as much as us. And I think it's a recipe for a very fun fall in the Ville.
No, I agree. I'm super excited. Again, just like you stated, we said on the preview show, we're not going to overreact. We're not overreacting. Honest to God, a lot of the thoughts and viewpoints that I had pre-spring game about this team are still the same ones. I still think this is going to be a top 15 ball team at the end of the day, and they're going to be pushing for a playoff berth with a very manageable schedule and a very good defense, and the offense should be firing. But as always, that's going to wrap us up here on the Cardinal Companion. If you enjoyed this show, do me a favor. If you didn't do it earlier, do it now. Subscribe to the page, leave us a like, throw us a comment. Tell us what made you most excited about the spring game. And we will catch you all later on. And we got our fun series coming up. We're going to start previewing some position rooms. And then after that, we're going to be talking about actual football, which is going to be pretty fun. So make sure to stay subscribed to the channel, stay locked in, and we will catch y'all next time. Go Cards.
Go Cards.